Hello, welcome to 8.9 News. I'm Ffinlo Costain. New statistics from the UK's Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs shine a light on the state of the UK's organic farming sector. Jerry Alford is a senior farming advisor for the Soil Association. I asked him what the statistics tell us.
It shows that we're starting to move in the right direction. We're getting some movement. We obviously had a large number of organic farmers some time ago. That changed historically, the bank crash and then cost of living crisis, but we've gone through the cost of living crisis and we're still getting farmers converting. So the fact it's unbalanced between Scotland being very good, Wales being static, and actually going down through lack of support, and the UK, we're beginning to see a movement in the right direction. So I suppose it's a tricky one. It doesn't look brilliant when you talk about 2%, but actually, in terms of areas of land, it's quite significant.
Why is the amount of organic farmland going down across the UK as a whole, but then up in Scotland?
I think one of the big factors we've got in Scotland is actually there's an organic plan up there. There's a policy from the government that organic farming systems suit their targets for environmental benefits. And as a result, organic is for them a relatively easy win because you've got a verified system that basically does what it says and we can prove it. And so they've also got policies there. So they've got some food procurement policies for hospitals and schools. That's brilliant because it means they're actually linking farming and health rather than just farming being an action on its own. So it's positive from that point of view. And it's because they've thought about it and realised it works for them.
So there's a mandate to use a proportion of organic produce in public procurement in Scotland.
Well, that's part of the answer is that they've realised, again, organic food is perceived to be nutrient rich. There's some research that's demonstrated that, but it's just that we know that healthy food from whatever source is better than a mass-produced ultra-processed food. And organic food is inevitably seen as being healthy. And so the public procurement, so that they are buying from organic sources, means we're getting fresh food going into those places. And it's the fresh food that's massively important.
Now, the demand for organic produce has risen in Britain, but as we've been discussing, supply has fallen, meaning an inevitable increase in organic imports. Well, that suggests that there is an opportunity for more UK farmers to enter the organic market.
Well, I think that's the point we're trying to make, is that there's scope there. We shouldn't be importing food in large quantities into the UK from whatever type it is. So looking to see what the marketplace is asking for, what is being imported, and looking to see if we can produce it in the UK organically, it's got to be the sensible thing for a business to do, not just producing a commodity and expecting someone to go and buy it or presuming someone's going to pay a premium price for it. It's happening in the conventional world as well. People are starting to look to targeted marketplaces. So organic farmers are certainly seeing that opportunity to say, right, what are we importing? Why are we importing foreign stuff that we can grow ourselves on the farm? Let's start doing that ourselves.
And how has the rising public media and brand interest in regenerative agriculture affected the UK's organic sector?
There are some people who are worried about it, but in general, the regenerative movement is a movement towards an organic type farming system. If you look at many of the practice that the regen farmers are doing, they're ones that we've been doing in organic for a long time. Cover crops, we've been calling them green manures. We're not claiming to have invented them. They've been around for a long time, but they've been part of the organic farming system for a long time. The longer rotations, the lack of use of pesticides. And this is the bit that's often forgotten. Regen farming does include reduction of inputs as well. It's not just picking up the practice that you like because you can buy a new drill. You actually need cover crops. You need to reduce your inputs. You need to do things that make your soil better. And that's what organic has always been about, those sort of improvements.
One of the things that regenerative farmers say is that they are less constrained in times of emergency than they would be under an organic scheme. Is that a challenge that you recognise?
I think that's one of those problems that comes if you define organic just by the products we're not allowed to use. When you look at organic farming is a system. It's a series of practices that you join together to make sure that you've got healthier soils, you've got reducing the risk of having pest and disease problems through the diversity that we build into our system naturally. So if you are just looking at organic as you can't use this, you can't use that, you're missing the point of organic. And regenerative farmers are starting to understand that historic, very much tied to inputs and a rotation which is tied to maximizing profit. It's not making profit anymore. The maximizing income for other bodies, perhaps. Organic has always find ways around these problems because we can't use something out of a bag or a can.
Now, of course, the organic label guarantees added value in the marketplace. So would you encourage more regenerative farmers to investigate organic certification?
I think it's one of the interesting aspects of what's happening in regenerative, because there is no specific marketplace that doesn't appear to be greenwashed at the moment. So they are producing and they're changing their farming system, and perhaps their increased profitability comes from the reduction of costs. Whereas if you have a verified system like organic, which actually we have inspections, you have to, I hate the phrase tick boxing, but there are certain things you can and can't do in organic. You can farm how you want, but you can't do this, this, and this. Regenerative farmers are beginning to see that that might be a solution, because there is no certification at the moment for regen, which means that anyone can claim they're a regen farmer, but there's no evidence beyond what they've said that there is. And organic does give that guarantee to the consumer. And so for regenerative farmers, I can see them, often they are now talking to us about how can we adopt your practices. Perhaps we ought to be looking at going organic.
Now, farmers making the transition to organic food production usually require additional financial support in the first few years. How do things stand currently across the UK's 4 nations? Is that support available?
In England and Scotland, there is support through organic conversion schemes and funding through, in England, it's countryside stewardship. In Wales, there has been organic support, but they haven't been offering it to anybody else other than people who are already involved. There's not been conversion. And Northern Ireland, again, there's no real support for organic conversion at the minute. These are areas we want to see improving, because farmers, you're farming organically, but you're having to sell into the conventional market in the first couple of years. So there is a price gap. There is an economic gap. So yes, some support to help farmers in that transition is helpful.
Jerry, back in the 2000s, there was a substantial increase in the market for organic, and a lot of farmers tried to take advantage of that. Now, this led to a bit of a boom and bust, and some farmers, quite frankly, lost their faith in the sector's ability to deliver. Farmers, as we know, have long memories. Is there a way to win back that trust and to avoid it happening again?
Yeah, I think that there was an element of people chasing the money at the time. Economics were tight. And then we hit a situation where we could have huge areas of land converted to organic in unproductive areas, and it's not going to bring any more organic food into the system. Back to where the point we started with, really, let's look at where there is scope for improvement in organic sales, and farmers should be looking towards how their business can feed into a particular supply chain, rather than just going organic and producing what I've always produced and expecting to get a premium. We have to start thinking about marketing our product, selling the story much better than perhaps we did back in the 2000s. So yes, there is some concern from people that they went organic and there was no marketplace. Yes, there is concern from governments that we converted lots of people to organic and then there was no marketplace. We are working very hard to try and open up those marketplaces. And as the Soil Association, it's part of the Organic for All concept, is that the whole idea is that it shouldn't be seen as a premium product at the top shelf of a supermarket that is only for the rich people. The premiums are not so big farm gate to justify that big increase in price. So someone's profit taking somewhere. But with the right sort of pressures, we can get organic product at ideal prices and support an increasing marketplace for farmers.
And of course, as discussed in terms of Scotland, public procurement requirements across the rest of Britain would also help to grow that marketplace for organic produce.
Oh, absolutely. If we could get a public procurement in Wales and Northern Ireland and in England, where hospitals and schools were deliberately sourcing organic food into their supply chains, that would be brilliant, because this is what's happening in Denmark, for example, where there's a very big, strong organic farming sector. It's because the procurement and the healthy food, moving away from that ultra processed manufactured, and if people are ill, people at school, they need quality food to help them get better and to help the education system.
That was Jerry Alford from the Soil Association. More news on our website 8.9.com. That's all for now. We're back soon. Thanks for watching.